Okay, we are live.
All right, cool. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be interviewed and to talk about the current state of things in Ukraine and veganism and whatever we are gonna talk about. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And let me know if my audio is bad or if you hear an echo or anything like that. And just a reminder to anyone in the chat, at the end, we'll be taking questions from the chat. So yeah. So my first question is, how's it going where you are? You know, you don't have to tell me like the exact region you're in. I don't know how safe that would be, but how's it going? How safe are you where you are, and how safe do you feel, in the environment you're in?
Well, I'm in the central part of Ukraine, so here things are more or less okay, I would say. But like from time to time, we also suffer from different terrorist attacks from Russia, especially on power infrastructure as of lately, because this is Russia's tactic as of now, just to attack power stations and supply lines, just to basically cut off all the electricity in Ukraine. So, yeah. So I would say relatively safe here where I am now, but you never know because missiles can fly anywhere and hit anything. Even if our air defense shoots something down, the remains of the missile can hit something, and cannot literally be safe here, quote unquote. It's just relatively safe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the current stuff that is here now, but. Yeah, it changes rapidly, from day to day, because some days Russians just decide to attack like massively on a mass scale, just to basically to incite kind of fear and to basically threaten us. And this is more of a psychological effect than than practical sometimes, but yeah. So
yeah, so I've seen some articles recently talking about how, some of the things Russia is doing could make it so a lot of Ukraine is without power for the winter. And how real of a threat do you think that is to where you are? Like not having power, not being able to heat your home during the winter.
Yeah, we really don't know what happens next, but we are preparing for a difficult winter because we just don't know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
When it's cold and when everything just the power lines can be attacked again, and as of right now, 40% of the power infrastructure is damaged. Mm-hmm. So if they continue damaging it, then we can be left without electricity, and then it also affects the water supply and also the heat in our homes. So we don't know if we have enough enough resources to sustain it. But I think we'll make it through. Yeah, it will not be easy, but yeah, but we are preparing for it. Like prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. That's the approach that all Ukrainians are taking right now, I would say. But I think it is likely that many cities will be suffering from power loss, from heat loss in the housing infrastructure, but we'll see.
So, how do you think the war is going in general? There's been lots of stories about, Ukraine has this major offensive that's really effective, and then, Russia's still doing all this sort of stuff. So, who do you think, if you had to say, who do you think is winning right now?
Yeah, on the battlefield, definitely Ukraine has more initiative, especially in the southern region. As you have probably seen, the city of Kherson was liberated just yesterday, and it was just the only like regional significance kind of. It was here in Ukraine we have regions that are called oblasts. So this was like the center of the Kherson Oblast, and that was the only center of any oblast here in Ukraine that was captured during the full-scale invasion. So this is a huge win for Ukraine, and also, of course, for the people living there who are now liberated and can basically just live their lives freely. Of course, there will be a lot of things happening post the occupation, but yeah, at least they are free now.
Yeah.
And that's a huge win. But also in the eastern region, Russia tries to advance actually, but they are suffering very, very heavy losses. These attacks are nothing short of insane, I would say. They are just literally throwing cannon fodder of newly mobilized soldiers, most of them. And they're just trying to advance, but it's not really working. So this is not sustainable. They will not make much advancement, I think, even if they throw like several more thousand soldiers in some particular direction. But yeah, the most unfortunate thing is all of these successes on Ukrainian part. They all mean that we also suffer a lot of casualties, a lot of losses, a lot of deaths. So this is not to be taken for granted because this is very difficult. This counteroffensive in southern region took at least a few months. It was very, very like heavy but steady. Our defense forces were planning a lot for it, obviously, like trying to spare as many lives as possible, not rushing, and just trying to make it at a sustainable pace. And yeah, so but that was not easy, not easy at all.
Yeah, it doesn't sound easy. And I commend you for your strength during this time. And I know, yeah, that must be very difficult. So the third question is, how do you think the war will ultimately end? Do you have any predictions, or is it just so up in the air that you have no clue, or?
Well, I'm not an expert, so I can only like make guesses, of course, but even experts cannot say much on it. But I think it will end probably like mid 2023, next year. But you know, it will end when the Russians cannot wage war anymore, when they literally run out of personal war and they run out of resources or whatever they run out of, but they cannot simply make this war happen. But when this happens, we don't know, but this is the only way. The only way is for Russia to just lose this war, then it will end. But otherwise, they will not stop. And I think it will end by Russians losing all of the occupied territories that they occupied even since 2014, including Donetsk and Luhansk regions, because they will not be able to sustain it. But all of that, if we take into account the continuous Western support, because without Western support, this is very, very like resource intensive, and you need a lot of weapons, and of course it takes a lot of money to defend the country.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah, it will also depend a lot on the Western response to everything happening. So
mhm,
what I said about 2023, like in summer probably, meaning the end of the war, this is taking into account the Western support that we're receiving now. Yeah. So, but if it cuts off somehow, or if the Western politicians lose interest really in this war, or they just, I don't know, they decide to take Russia's blackmailing attempts to destabilize this world even further than it is now, then we might not make it until probably several years from now. We don't know, but yeah,
yeah,
hopefully as soon as possible.
I mean, these midterm elections were, I think, very crucial in whether or not Ukraine will get more support from the United States. A big talking point among Republicans here is, talking about how we've sent so much money to Ukraine, and they talk about, how, we have problems here. We should just deal with the problems in America and not, send money abroad. Um, but, it's looking like the Democrats are almost definitely going to keep the Senate and may even narrowly keep the House. If they don't keep the House of Representatives, there's a good chance that aid will shut off, just because the Republicans are, they try to use it as, a fiscal conservative justification, but uh, yeah, it's just to appease their base, who, and a lot of them do support Russia. So that is unfortunate.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. And these people, they don't really understand that if we don't win this war, if we don't hold it, if we fall, then it will not be anyhow better for the Western countries, including the US. This will end very badly if we fall. So this is not only about Ukraine. This is about the whole democracy, about the whole concept of freedom and freedom of choice. And yeah, this is going to be horrible when something happens because Russia, they will not stop. They will only continue to terrorize the Western countries, even if it's not like some kind of military kind of attack. They will still attack on many levels, including information. They will try to create famines to sort of turn the situation on their side and try to lift sanctions. This is their plan. This is as clear as a day that they will not stop,
Hmm.
and it will only end badly if we don't win. But yeah, it is sometimes difficult to get through the heads of people who have never been here, who have never dealt with the Russians, and who don't understand their foreign policies and kind of the whole culture that is expansionist, that is imperialistic, and that tries to be as against
Hmm.
as possible, like against the West. They are always against it. So yeah, this is not good if we don't make it. But I don't know. I hope this support continues, and even if it doesn't, then we will have to deal somehow with it and find another partners and to make it through. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going forward, like you said, aid and weapons, what do you think, other than that, the West should do? I mean, a lot of Ukrainians were talking about, and people who weren't even Ukrainian talking about establishing a no-fly zone in Ukraine. But, it seems like U.S. officials just, brush that off because obviously that include shooting down, Russian jets and that sort of thing, which, they think could escalate to World War III and that sort of thing, or that would even start World War III, I guess they could say. What would your response be to that and the, sort of threat of nuclear war that, Putin and Russia are, threatening if, the West gets involved in that way? And even without getting involved in that way, they still threaten it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the War of Three is already happening. And it is a question of whether more countries get involved in it or not. But it is already happening, and the whole point is that it's Russia, they will not kind of. What I'm trying to say is that they will escalate it when they see weakness. And if the West shows weakness, they will escalate. So I think one of the main things to remember is that, for example, I wanted to show you an example of some rhetorics and Western politicians. Like, for example, President of France, Emmanuel Macron, he said that he was not going to use nuclear response to Russia if Russia uses. This is an example of a bad foreign policy rhetoric because Russia, they just take it as weakness, and they will act and escalate more boldly if we show weakness. And so the best way to deal with them is to kind of threaten them the way they threaten, because bullies, they only understand bullying language. And I think Western politicians should just act more boldly and speak more directly. Even if they don't mean it, even if they don't mean like using nuclear weapons, they should state it clearly that they are going to use it, because this is actually leading to make it less happen, the nuclear war, less likely to happen. Because the weakness that some of the Western politicians are showing, this is actually leading to escalation of the increasing the likelihood of the nuclear war. So yeah, is this does this answer your question? Because
yeah, I think it definitely does. I think the biggest fear, with the Cold War politics, just everyone just has in mind like, oh, any minute we could all be blown to smithereens. I saw a live stream from Vegan Gains actually recently, and he was talking about how there's not even all that much certainty that Russia even has like all the nuclear capabilities that they speak of, or if they do, they don't have enough, or they perhaps haven't maintained them to the point where they have so many nuclear warheads that they could just destroy all that much territory. But so I think that'd be something to keep in mind going forward for the West. All right, so other than that, what, as an individual, if I want to help out Ukraine, what would you recommend civilians from Western countries and that sort of thing to do?
Yeah, I would say if you can donate to Ukrainian defense forces, and this doesn't mean that you should like donate I don't know, half your salary or something like that. You can donate as little as a few dollars per month, the price of coffee, something like that, or a snack. And when millions of people do this, and it's a huge amount of money. For example, here in Ukraine, we fundraise for a few like unmanned aerial vehicles from Turkey. They call private cars. We fundraise for them in a few days. I don't remember the price, but it was like a lot. It's probably like 6 or 7 billions of Ukrainian So this is a huge amount of money, and it was raised internally here within Ukraine, a country torn by war and by huge inflation and not such huge salaries. So yeah, the Western people can actually help a lot just by donating a few dollars or euros or whatever currency per month. And yeah, it can be done from anywhere and at your own pace, or no matter how much you donate, as long as you do it, then you are really helping a lot. Especially now as winter comes and our defense forces need to prepare, especially buy stuff for winter clothes, and also specific kind of equipment for winter, and electric generators, stuff like that. These things cost a lot of money, and everyone can help. And also sharing the information, following Ukrainian accounts. There are many accounts that have started showing information on what's happening here in English. So everyone can share these informational posts just to fight the Russia's information war, because they literally try to kind of gaslight the whole world with their alternative information, and yeah, sharing posts and talking about Ukraine also helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just to Ukraine to stay relevant in news, and so that this war is not somehow in the background and it's not forgotten, and so that we stay relevant in people's minds, not just in Eastern Europe, but far beyond.
Yeah, it definitely needs to stay atop of people's mind. I mean, I guess the glass half full kind of look at it is, even though it seems like Ukraine has, faded what it once was in the news, it doesn't have the media presence that it once had. During the time that it was really in the news, a lot of people had, even around where I am in Utah, which is a conservative state. So, like I said, some people would be saying like, "Oh, who cares about Ukraine? We shouldn't be sending, billions of dollars to them." But, even here I see, Ukraine flags in people's windows, and bumper stickers that have the Ukrainian flag. So all of that is very encouraging. I hope it sounds very encouraging to your efforts and the efforts in Ukraine. So my other question, or my seventh question, and this is where it kind of gets more into the vegan side of things. How, in your experience, or as far as you have, the information you've consumed, how has the war affected animal agriculture there? And then, after, maybe you could talk about any animal sanctuaries that you know of, that the war has directly impacted.
Yeah, here, yeah, there are many farms in the more eastern and southern parts of Ukraine that they have been destroyed, and many animals have died there. Obviously, they would have died anyway because they would be sent to slaughter. But yeah, there were many horrific cases of cows and pigs and chickens. They were literally just burning down alive. It was horrible. And yeah, and also because of these farms that have been destroyed, the prices for animal products here in Ukraine, they raised significantly, which I would say is not bad at all that they raised. Obviously, they shouldn't be raising because of war. They should be just cease existing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is some kind of positive byproduct of this whole situation. But I hope less animals will be bred into existence when Ukraine gets rebuilt, and these parties just stop operating altogether. It's unnecessary, obviously. And to address the second part of your question about animal shelters, there was one animal shelter in Kiev region that was temporarily occupied when Russians came nearby Kiev and tried to seize it. The owner of the sanctuary, they just held it through somehow. And when our local animal rights organization visited it, it was all right. So I would say they were just lucky that Russians didn't just kill all the animals and didn't kill the owner or didn't do any kind of other atrocities. But it was pure luck, I would say. And here we have local Ukrainian-based animal rights organization, which is promoting vegan message, and it's called Кожна Полена. And this organization, they try to help animals in any way they can, even in such tough times. Try to find places for animals to be safe and to be evacuated. And there are also many volunteers that are helping animals to be evacuated from the eastern parts, from the front lines, the cities that are getting shelled by the Russians daily. So those animals are just literally wandering around the city, and they really need human help. So yeah, this is also damaging a lot of animals' lives, not just people. This war is horrible for animals because people, of course, because of their speciesism, people care generally less about animals, and some people, when they flee, they can just leave animals, not take horribly.
My thing must up. All right. Can you still see me and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, were you in the middle of saying something?
No, I just finished what
Okay,
I was going to say.
So, yeah, that is very interesting what you said. Something that I was thinking of was, how I think you mentioned if these farms are being, blown up and that sort of thing, and they're all just being attacked. The sad part is, that may even be better for the animals because they're being killed and then they're not being perpetually bred and, holocausted during this time. I'm sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'd imagine just, the raw number of animals who, were killed, in the same time period as the war is going on, the time period before that, before the war, it seems that more animals, were being killed before that just because everything was up and going and, they weren't under attack. But yeah, it is sad nonetheless. And, that's not the way to, bring about animal liberation, obviously. So my next question is, are you still doing vegan activism during this? I know you said that you're relatively safe where you are, but I don't know how much like street traffic is there. Do people just stay, more so in their homes? I'd imagine many people are working, even right before the war happened. I saw reports of people just going to work as normal. I think Zelensky recommended that. But yeah, what kind of vegan activism are you doing if you're doing any in person?
Yeah, currently I'm not doing offline kind of activism, which means street activism that I used to do prior to work. I was doing a lot of cubes with the Anonymous for the Voiceless. Of course, you know them. And this type of activism right now is not viable. It's not really like it's even forbidden to do any kind of demonstrations right now because yeah, it's just the officials. They don't allow like mass gatherings because it can be dangerous, especially when there is an error, like red alert, and we are getting attacked. So it's just not practicable right now, and people are like focused on themselves quite a lot, and I think they would probably not stop much, not stopping by as much to watch the footage that we would demonstrate on the screens when we do cubes.
Yeah.
So that kind of activism is out of question really right now, but I'm doing online activism, like from time to time just commenting things and trying to engage in conversations about animal rights. So, and online activism is available to everyone, and I'm doing that when I have some spare time, when I have some mental energy to deal with the like anti-vegan excuses and stuff like that, then I'm doing that. But other than that, I'm not doing much currently, not as much as I would like to do, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it is very interesting. I mean, I've heard Gary Yourofsky talk about how, people who are oppressed oftentimes are more receptive to veganism, or, people who have undergone very difficult things. I'd be curious to see if after the war, how different the response from people would be. People might be more receptive to it, or if they're, I don't know if the war would have like the opposite effect, like, oh, the war's over now, I'm just gonna try to live my life to the fullest and give in to all these, like hedonistic desires, like eating animal products and that sort of thing. So I'd be curious to see, how that goes after the fact.
Yeah, I think people actually are gonna be more receptive to the vegan message after the war because they can kind of relate more to the suffering because many people have suffered from this, at least psychologically. We are all affected by this, but especially people who have been the front lines or that have been occupied and suffered from Russian oppression, or they have even been tortured or anything like that, or threatened by Russians. These people, I think they are going to be more relating to the vegan message because they have been oppressed themselves. But this is just my assumption. Of course, I don't know, but I think it's gonna be easier to spread animal rights messages here after it all ends. But
yeah,
hopefully.
You could use even after the war. You could even, especially if you go places where they were, more particularly harder hit and occupied and that sort of thing. You could do thought experiments and say, you were in so much fear and terror given what was happening to you. Why would you want to put another sentient being through, a similar form of terror and that sort of thing? Which goes into my second and last question. So, if anyone wants to ask my guests some questions about Ukraine or animal rights, go ahead and do so. And yeah, and everyone make sure to follow him as well. He's a great vegan activist, and it's a great live stream. I'm going to be clipping some of these and putting them up for anyone who hadn't been able to attend. So, do you think, as far as the motive goes for Russia attacking Ukraine, do you think there's any, and I don't really want to sound like an intersectionalist, but do you think that there is overlap in the motivation for Russia to brutalize Ukraine and people to brutalize animals? Do you think it's like they're both symptoms of like an overall, moral sickness, you'd say?
Yeah, could you really repeat the question because I don't think I heard it quite clearly.
So
Yeah.
Russia attacking Ukraine and, people just attacking animals. Do you think that there is an overall, motive that sort of connects these two, or do you think the motivations are completely different and you couldn't really make any sort of comparison?
Yeah, but I think that both of these things they can be based on like pure hate because Russia they just hate Ukrainians for just being Ukrainian. This is like a discrimination based on nationality, and speciesism it's based on discrimination based on species. So these things they can be like there can be a parallel between the two, but I'm not sure if we can like connect these two more than that,
Hmm.
other than like discrimination, but one based on species and the other on nationality.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. And this is the last question. This is kind of not so serious question. But are you aware of the anti-vegan named Sverige? He's Latvian.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am. Yeah,
So
it's,
So he had
I mean,
visited Ukraine before to visit his friend named Milk Jar. I don't think Milk Jar was like born in Ukraine. I think he's from like New York in the United States. But apparently there's a bunch of rumors. And oh yeah, I should probably say, did you know who Milk Jar was? Who's basically Sverge's like friend?
no, I don't know him,
Hmm.
but I know Sverige.
Yeah,
Not like personally, but from online spaces.
yeah. So Milk Jar, like Sverige, not only supports the animal holocaust and ate animals' raw corpses and secretions, but thinks or thought, maybe I should say, that raping humans is good. And apparently, there's a bunch of rumors that he died in Ukraine, like he went and volunteered to fight Russia. And Sverige says that he died there, or that he tried to contact him and he didn't, respond, or that sort of thing. What do you think about that? If an anti-vegan like that came to Ukraine and died.
I mean, this is like a very confusing situation, to be honest, because like, on one in one way, this person kind of has good intentions and just wants to help Ukrainians to win this war, but on the other, he's an oppressor and he wants to, the animals to die in as many numbers as possible, basically. So I don't know. This is like a hard ethical question, I would say, but I don't even know. Uh,
Hmm.
this person has it confused. That
Hmm.
is for sure. That is what I would say because this is huge hypocrisy because you fight kind of one oppression, but you are an oppressor. This is literally like feminists, for example, they fight oppression of women, but they also are oppressors of not all obviously, but those who are not vegan,
Hmm.
and they support animal abuse through buying animal products. This is the same kind of hypocrisy, I would say,
Hmm.
and this goes for a lot of human-related movements who also participate in animal abuse, but they stand up for the rights of humans in any kind of way. So yeah, this is just a pure hypocrisy, I would say. But good for him if
Hmm.
he fought for Ukraine and yeah.
I mean, yeah, for sure. And if anyone has any questions you'd like to ask, I think your name is Serhi. I probably butchered that name. How do you pronounce it? I think
Yeah,
I looked up the pronunciation, but like I cannot.
yeah, you almost nailed it actually because my name is pronounced as Serhi,
Hmm.
but it's the last letter is difficult to pronounce for English speakers because you don't have like an alternative
Hmm.
to that letter. So yeah.
Yeah. So just so I can wait for any questions, something that I just thought of, what do you actually think about President Zelensky and his leadership during the war?
During what?
During the
I,
just during the war with Russia, what do you think about Zelensky and his leadership?
yeah. I mean, he has made mostly right decisions, and he is in the interest of Ukrainian people. And I think his leadership skills, they grew exponentially when the war started, because he had to like literally take it all on himself and just do what needed to be done, and probably take unpopular decisions, and it was tough. I can't even imagine being in his place. It is unimaginable responsibility,
Hmm.
and yeah, he was not as old, I would say, prior to war. And even if you look at him like visually, he definitely got older. Just 9 months
Yeah.
of war maybe to him is he changed a lot. Just looking on pictures from like the beginning of February, and looking at him now, he's a completely different person, and a completely different person when you see him speak. So, so yeah, he's a great leader, and he didn't always make the right decisions prior to war, and I think there should have been done way more in terms of preparation for the war. But on the other hand, if he was pouring more and more money into army and that kind of stuff, I think he would be criticized for that as well, when money go for the army but not for infrastructure, for example, and yeah, so he would be criticized anyway.
Hmm.
And it's not even my criticism of his policies, but this is just the way I see it. This is my personal opinion, that he could have done more before the war started, because they like our leadership, they knew it
Hmm.
when like not exactly when it would start, but they knew it would start sometime in February. So the preparation could have been done better, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I may be misremembering this, but it feels like I remember Zelensky sort of playing down the idea that Russia was going to invade. I remember President Biden, talking about how, Russia's going to invade, Russia's going to invade. Um, but, you know, it it seems like Zelensky, I don't know if he just didn't want to cause a panic or, what the
Yeah,
mentality was there.
I think it was that. I think he just didn't want people to panic and just to leave the country, and that's it. That's probably the only reason why he didn't take it serious in public
Mhm.
and in media. But I think it should be the only reason.
All right, so we got a question. What tips would you give to someone who wants to go vegan but doesn't know how? I'd like you to just start off to answer that.
Yeah, I think the best way to start is just to start from why, just to watch documentaries, especially documentaries such as Dominion and Earthlings, and the best speech you will ever hear by Kevin Yorovsky, things like that. The very, very popular in the vegan movement documentaries and speeches, and following vegan activists like Joey Carstone, Elton Ad, and all the, let's say, famous people in this movement, and just to understand why, to understand the whole concept. And that is the most important, because when you understand why, you will find the how.
Mhm.
It's just it will all make sense, let's say, because I would not recommend people just to like look for vegan recipes and stuff like that before, you know, looking at why.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
they probably will not get it,
Hmm.
and they will probably just give up, or they will be confused or whatever, like why they are doing it. People should be doing it for the right reasons, not from the point of their health. Of course, people should care about their health, but this is their decision to care about it or not. But when it comes to ethics, people should be making their decisions when they are informed, and the best way to start is just to get informed.
Yeah,
That's
for
how
sure.
I would answer it.
And just to add on to that, when I first went vegan, um, it was for ethical reasons, but then I looked up, tips on going vegan. And sometimes I feel like those videos could be very detrimental to people because it was like someone who I would even consider vegan. I can't remember, if they said they were, vegan for their health or whatever, but they were basically saying like, oh, if you cave in and eat like cheese or whatever, like don't beat yourself up too bad. But I mean, if they do watch Dominion and that sort of thing, I think a lot of people they won't even ever even think of going back to eating cheese or going back to, eating all these, disgusting animal products. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. So if no one has any questions, I think that'll do it. We've been streaming for about an hour. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and I wish you luck for the future. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was
Yeah,
a pleasure.
yeah. See you.